7, so this move to A has really paid off for our viewership.
Wow, so they're gonna watch an exciting game 3 here of Group A of this Newcomers tournament between Rahi, Scottcall, Bogus Rogus, and Bobson. And alongside me, the voice you heard just now is Black Magic. What do you make of this one?
Well, I noticed that besides the water in
Oh,
the
that's very early. That's very early. 42,000 for that science spot. Not
wow,
sure I can justify that.
I don't know. That's an interesting one. I would say that water is going to be extremely awkward in this game. So, to be fair for Bogus Rogus, it's a decent location just because you can get some water nearby, unless you go robotic or unless everybody else goes robotic.
So Scott calls first to HQ2. One thing I want to note, I'm really concerned about Bobson's claims here. Bobson, you're not going to be able to get those geotherms up at all. They're going to cost you so much money. They're going to cost you $17,000 per geotherm. You're not going to be able to get them at all. You're going to be stuck at HQ1. You need to cancel those right now and go into iron and steel, because that is what's going to get you the upgrade. Bogus Rogus does get to 2, so when you found with $42,000 of debt, I feel like you need to be first to HQ2 to justify that. I guess he's up against a scavenger, and steel was at 120 and carbon was at 10.
Yes.
But even so, I feel like you need to be like, if you're going to found that early, you need to be upgrading very quickly indeed.
Now, interestingly enough, because Bobson has those 2 geothermal claims and has no steel production, Bobson is going to be feeding Bogus Rogus some steel money because you have to purchase all of that steel.
Well,
If
I don't think
that.
yeah, I don't think he is,
Yeah.
because I don't think he's going to be able to buy them at all.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's going to be he's eventually going to realize that he's not going to be able to buy them. I hope, and go into iron and steel instead. But that's really what he needs to do.
So the first thing that we should mention for anybody that hasn't really played very often, you can refund the claims, and fortunately Bobson has refunded one of the
At least one of
claims.
them.
It would really, with steel that expensive, the answer for that is, if you want to go into power, the answer is not geothermals. You want to look at either the carbon or silicon and go into 1 or 2 solar panels or wind farms.
So Bogus Rogus first to 3, and he's got the aluminum production, which is working out really well for him at the moment. The other two contenders in this game, Bobson, I'm afraid, has kind of fallen out of it. The other 2 contenders, Rye and Scottcall, both get to 3 as well. We have a single steel mill on the other. It's going to be a double steel mill on the other side from Rahi, and I kind of like that. That's good defense against black market, and he's got that geotherm as well to build at some point, although that's going to be very expensive for the same reasons that it was expensive for Bobson.
Yes. So here's another. That's another great point right there for Rahi. Those are 2 geothermal claims.
Oh, he's got 2. Yeah, that's too many.
Well, not only that, but so by the time you get the 19K to put those 2 down, somebody else hopefully will have gone into power by then. Meanwhile, if you look at getting a wind turbine up would be 7K, and a solar panel would be 5K. Instead of going to those geothermals, that's where you get a little bit of silicon, and then you put 2 panels down right next to you.
So I think Bogus Rogus is making a significant mistake here by building these 2 chem refineries in the southeast corner of the map. They're not all that profitable, just because fuel's so high. They're going to make some money, but just the amount of stuff you have to ship over. There are magnetic storms on the map. There are no pirates. So that's one reason for it, but you're already in D levels of debt. You really need to be focusing on getting that power down instead, I think.
So taking a look at for Bogus Rogus, already in D debt because of the early found, and because other people have not been able to go into power because they were making the mistake of trying to go into geothermals versus something that's quick that you can put up to start making some money. Bogus Rogus also has a patent lab going up, which I'm assuming is going to be for something like teleportation.
Yeah.
unfortunately, in D-level debt, you have mutinies out there. He's not going to be able to defend it.
Yeah, it's completely, he's not able to defend it at all, and teleportation's actually fairly expensive. It's going to be, what, 11,000 for him? So he's basically going to have to sell all his steel down, which slows down his upgrade to HQ4, and also means he can't get any more power down, and like it's just going to be really difficult for him to climb out of this debt that he's in at the moment.
So Bobson is now at HQ2 and going into another metal mine and one steel mill. I would rather like to see a couple of steel mills because steel is so profitable, and just try to race to get that HQ3 upgrade.
Yeah, there need to be, I think, at least one more and probably 2 more steel mills coming down just here next to the metal mines. The electrolysis reactor really isn't doing anything. I don't know whether he. I don't know whether he's thinking that he's scientific this game, but he's not scientific, he's robotic, so he's not going to get any benefit from being on that water pump and having that electrolysis reactor down.
Yes. So here's one thing I'd like to point out for Bogus Rogus. In D-Debt, however, Cook the Books is available. So you can buy a little bit of time, where teleportation maybe would pay off later on. Still, it's really expensive, and I'm not really sure if that's the, if you were in Bogus Rogus's position, what would you do right now to try to dig yourself out?
I think you absolutely have to cook the books. I think that's the first step towards getting yourself relevant again in this game. I think teleportation is absolutely necessary at this point. He's painted himself into this corner where he's got these chems, and he needs to make them profitable quite quickly. He's got the farms coming down. I mean, that's okay, and he has at least put a check on his power production, so he's going to get something there. But I would like to point out that Scott Call, with his 3 wind turbines, one of which is now mutinied away, unfortunately, was making a bunch of power money a while ago until he got that auction for 18,000. So he's put himself in a really, really good position in this game. Rahi is also making power money. He's got, or I don't know whether it's he or she, they've got a geotherm which is superconductor boosted. In fact, they've got a second geotherm as well, which isn't superconductor boosted, but still 5.3 power a second. They're making a lot of money on power, but just a little bit behind Scott Call in terms of upgrades.
So let's see. Taking a look at Bobson again, just to be helpful in terms of the way to progress, you want to make sure to build triangles of things as opposed to individual buildings. And just a quick note for future help: the geothermal there was claimed on HQ1. Sometimes it's better to put off some of your going into power until, say, an HQ 2 or 3, let the power rise a little bit, and then go into it when you have more tiles where you can make some money. So
yeah, absolutely. That claim's been sitting there and hasn't been doing anything. So yeah, and the fact that you have adjacency bonuses, you absolutely have to take advantage of adjacency bonuses. They're too powerful.
And so one thing I've seen from a lot of newer players, they look at the power when that is the greatest number on the board. Let's say power is at 125 and everything else is lower than that. They look at that and they think, you know what, I need to go into power. That's the most profitable. Do that as quickly as possible. But remember, you're paying off debt in order to do that. And so it may not be what's going to make you the most money. You need to focus on upgrading first, and try to get to as many tiles as you can, and then pay down your debt.
Scott Call is going to steal thinking machines away from Rahi, who unfortunately is 18 seconds away from finishing it, but Scott Call is 4 seconds away from completing that patent. So Scott Call is going to be able to get that, and that's a pretty big deal, because Offworld's this game pretty good. 510 for oxygen at the moment, that's only going to go up from here, and food is also a pretty good launch as well. So that's going to be really good for him, I think, for Scott Call, to get that thinking machines down. He's got, I think, a lead in most other aspects of this game as well. He's ahead in cash of Rahi. He's got a bunch of patents as well that are going to be very beneficial. Nanotech, with carbon being so expensive, is particularly big. So I think he's in a good position this game.
So if you're in Scott, the way that you finish this game out, if you're Scott Call, you need to start buying into Bogus Rogus. Anytime you can see a player start to spiral out due to debt, and Bogus Rogus is in 206K of debt, as soon as this next debt tick hits, that's going to be a very, very, very painful 30% on that. So as soon as debt ticks, that's where you can start to buy in. Try to get a cheap buy, and that's actually going to be a fairly profitable sub with teleportation, because all of the debt will be cleared out, and you'll start to make some good money from that. But more important than that is you're going to get a stock boost from that. So. Remarkably, it's interesting. Bobson, instead of buying in, needs to update or needs to upgrade. But it is ironic that Bobson is the only one that has identified, hey, we should buy into Bogus Rogus.
Yeah, I mean, Bobson's not in any sort of a position to finish that buy. He just doesn't have the earning potential to get anywhere near that. But yeah, Scott Call absolutely does need to go into Bogus Rogus here. Bogus Rogus just took a $60,000 debt tick. It's now at $266,000 in debt, and I don't think he's getting out of it anytime soon, I'm afraid, not even with teleportation, and not even as a scientist that's making a fair amount of money on steel and on chems. But Scott Call now is really in the driving seat in this game. A close second, honestly, is Rahi, who's managed to stay relevant in this game, mainly through producing these chems, and they also have a couple of very useful patents, virtual reality and a pleasure dome going up right now, financial instruments, which is paying for itself, and then some already, and also the superconductor, which has done work on the power. So it's kind of an interesting game, but I think it's true that whoever gets into Bogus Rogus first, and Bogus Rogus is actually defending themselves now as well, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but again, the cost of him is just going to go down so much. Whoever can get to that buy first, I think, is going to be in a really good position in this game.
And when you're talking about those debt ticks right there, every time adding 30% onto now 267K, you're talking about, oh wait, Bogus Rogus is actually going into Bobson, which is an interesting move. If you're Bogus Rogus at this point, you do want to go into Bobson, because that's something where
that's the stock
you
price
can boost
boost
your
you need.
stock price just from that, and you still have an HQ2 that's going to change their production, and it'll also artificially prop up your own stock price, so it's harder to go. So this is actually a fantastic move by Bogus Rogus that other people didn't really notice.
Yep.
You've always got to be careful with that.
It does mean that they're going to take another enormous debt tick, and this one's going to be closer to 100,000, I think, as well. It's coming up in a few hours. You've just got to make paying off this debt a huge priority right now, because yeah, like, if you take this debt tick and you don't make enough money tomorrow, then you're in big trouble.
You know, I'm actually gonna. I'd say I would go the opposite way. If I'm Bogus Rogus, I don't mess with my debt right now. You're in 282,000, and you're not going to be able to get out of it. All I do is
How do you win though? Like, you've got Scott Callers putting an off-world down. You've got Rahi who's defended himself completely, $35 stock price. How do you make that amount of money? You're HQ4.
Yes. So what you do for Bogus Rogus is any chance you get, just keep buying Cook the Books. That's what you do to start off here. The second thing is you need to upgrade just to be able to boost your share price and to get some more. Don't worry about, say, rotating. I saw Bogus Rogus was rotating back into water. Don't worry about rotating things right now. When you're rotating it, you're losing money that you could be using to upgrade. In order to get out of this, the only thing you could possibly do is upgrade to HQ5, look for whatever's profitable. Then, when you're in HQ5, then you can potentially start to pay down a little bit just to get into that C range.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not much that he can do though to make money. He's next to, like, he's got the single water, he's got the chems, which are completely unprofitable now. There's nothing else that he can put there that's particularly profitable either. Can't really go with the electronics because silicon's so high. I guess he can make aluminum instead of the farm here. He needs to get rid of that farm. Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult situation for him to be in. I agree that going after Bobson was the right play, but I don't think there's particularly anything that he can do now
I
um,
agree.
to get himself back into the game.
Now, interesting. So Rahi prioritized buying all of his stock and then started going into Scott Call, which I'm trying to figure out if I like going 100% in your own stock versus going after somebody else. I guess one of the nice things about going after your own stock and then going after Scott Call is that Scott Call went for the off-world and essentially tied up a bunch of
Yeah.
money in that. So
Yeah, I don't know whether Rahi saw Scott Call going for the offworld and then decided to go into him based off that. I think I would have preferred getting more of Scott Call's stock, given that he went into the offworld rather than his own stock, rather than their own stock for Rahi. Rahi also building an offworld now. Where is that offworld? Oh, there it is. Just next to the geotherm. But Scott Call is going into a second offworld, and I mean, offworlds are pretty good. 55,000 profit. They're very good, in fact. They're not pretty good. So I think I don't know. It's kind of interesting, right? He's got the stock price lead, the stock lead as well, and also has a little bit more cash, albeit that some of it is tied up in building that offworld. So it's going to be kind of interesting. Scott Call definitely, I think, has the late game advantage, but certainly Rahi has the lead.
yes. I really like Rahi at this particular point in terms of the positioning, because you're looking at I haven't found Rahi's off-world yet. Is it at the colony?
No, it's
Oh, no, I
it's
see
just
it
next
now.
to the geotherm, yeah, in the
Okay.
northwest.
So the nice thing about Rahi's positioning is not only do you have all of your stock secured and 4 of the next challenger. Ooh, although
That was a big deal that Scott Call just got to that. Yeah, absolutely.
And look how much it affected Scott Call's stock price.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rahi did buy a lot of Scott Call before that happened, so that was really good that they did that. But yeah, $67 stock is a really big deal right now. The
with
fact
2
that,
off-worlds.
yeah, with the 2 off-worlds, with the 2 subsidiaries, Bogus Rogus is probably going to start making in money at some point as well. He's going to be able to shut down the off-world, at least temporarily, of Rahi. Yeah, I don't know. This is looking close. I think Scott Call with the earnings potential might just be in a good position here.
That completely changed the game. So there's something that Rahi could have done to prevent that, and that would be buy Bogus Rogus first.
Yeah.
You've always got to be cognizant of anybody that is debt spiraling. If you can
Yeah.
pick them off,
You
that
get
is where you can get a huge advantage, as you saw with Scott Call. Because not only did Scott Call get all of Bogus Rogus, but also a portion of another subsidiary, and it didn't cost them very much to do it.
and also 2 claims, which are a big deal at this point in the game, particularly if you're a scavenger. You don't have many claims to be playing with in any case. So if you can get more claims at this point in the game, that's a really beneficial thing for you, and especially if it's only going to cost you, 80,000 or whatever it was that Scott Call eventually paid for Bogus Rogus.
And Rahi right there mentioning, I was just about to mention this before he said it.
Oh,
he's
he wasn't
not
launching. Oh, that's
he
unfortunate.
wasn't launching anything, unfortunately.
Oh
and
dear.
now Scott Call has his other. Scott Call has all of this. You know, he has the advantage in terms of being able to mutiny it away. And yeah, I think unfortunately this is Scott Call's game to lose. And look at the off-world prices. I mean, you're getting 50k launches from Oxygen, and both one of the 2 is already defended. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is Scott Call's game to lose. So in terms of money, he needs 90 times 8, so 720 or so to finish off Rahi. Rahi needs 150 times 6, so 900 or so to finish off Scott Call. So Scott Call actually has a lead now, as well as having the earnings potential, the enormous earnings potential of 3 off-world markets to Rahi's 1 and 2 subsidiaries.
So let's see. Somebody just purchased the Goon Squad there. Let's see who got that. Oh, the Scott Call did. Okay, so Scott Call can go ahead and put that that Goon Squad. I'm not sure if the Goon Squad was necessary. I guess with 14k power surges, then it's good to keep those up. So it's probably
Yeah,
still
I think honestly I would have put it on the other off-world, because he does have thinking machines. So a mutiny on the other off-world is a full mutiny, whereas a mutiny on the one that's gooned at the moment is only you only get half of it, as it were.
That's a good point. Also, if you're in Scott Call's position, the other thing you want to do is you want to be utilizing the black market, and since you're the one with thinking machines, you want to try to chew through those goons, because sure, they'll come back on you, but
Yep.
ultimately you can steal away their off-world. You can shut their off-world down a lot more effectively than they can, than vice versa. So
Yeah, and there is the mutiny from Rahi on Scott Call's off-world. Going to get mutinied back, is it? Or he's just going to take Rahi's instead. Could also take his own back with the other mutiny if he wanted to as well. I think I would if I were him. But honestly, I don't think it matters a huge amount. I think the
correct.
Earnings potential and the stock price lead for Scott Call is just so enormous at this point that I think he's going to win this game fairly comfortably from here.
And what you said, the game is actually over, but just for the benefits of anybody watching, the correct move at this point is Goon Squads are $70,000, but if you look at what you're making for one launch, that $62,000 is the best launch. So even though it's such an expensive mutiny, it's still 100% worth it to do, as long as you're not, close to being bought.
And even at 110k, it's still worth it, because not only are you getting those 2 launches, which is 120,000, but you're removing 2 launches from your opponent.
That's correct.
So it's a delta 4 launches, as it were.
With the exception of if you're using it to go after somebody with thinking machines.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
then in
that's
that
true.
case you only get one launch.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, with off-worlds that's profitable, even at 110,000, it's pretty much always worth it to use it on an off-world that you know is undefended.
Yes. And that was a pretty good defensive move by Scott Call to go ahead and pick up the mutiny and just sit on it, because then Rahi can't go after the unthinking machine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have taken the my own off-world back, as it were, immediately.
Versus going after his.
Well, I think he could have done both. So he had a mutiny stored up, and he had a black market cooldown as well. So he could have taken both. I don't know. I don't really know why he didn't. It was definitely the thing to do, I think.
You know what? And again, not that this necessarily matters, but it's worth noting that the Rahi still has defended off-world market over there. It might be worth it. Just ping it.
Well, I don't know. So actually, this is closer than I thought it was going to be. I think Scott Call is still going to win, but he's had his off-world shut down now. He takes away Rahi's off-world, which is going to hurt him quite a lot. But it's kind of a little bit close. Like they're within 250k or so of each other, which I think, because Rahi was able to get those launches off from Scott Call's off-world, I think that made it closer than it needed to be.
Oh, excellent move by Rahi.
Yeah, freezing his own stuff,
his
really
own
good.
Off-world, that was a fantastic move.
Really good.
Wow. Yeah,
The
this
blue
is turning out to be a lot closer than I thought it would be. I still think, because of the stock price difference, I still have to give the advantage to Scott Call, because it's just a lot more in order to close that ground.
Yeah, and if you look at on-world prices have kind of died. Well, they've pretty much died, to be honest. So the off-world is basically the way you make money at this point in the game. We're late enough that on-world prices have died, and that basically your sole income is an off-world market. And Scott Call at the moment has more of them than Rahi, which is going to mean, I think, that he takes this game number 3 as soon as his next couple of launches come through.
And unfortunately, the power surges are just too expensive for Rahi to really use at this point to shut down that off-world market. I mean, it's 95% to 75%.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think it's just going to be too much.
And Scott Call did goon that market as well, which is what he needed to do a while ago, I think. But he finally did, and so yeah, it should be pretty much a lock from here as soon as these 2 launches come through for him to finish this game.
So worth noting, as much as we talked about purchasing those subsidiaries, I just wanted to point out how much they're actually making for their respective owners. Not very much at all, but
Yeah.
the big benefit was to the stock bump, so it's still a good move when Bogus Rogus went after Bobson. That's still good just for the stock bounce.
So
Wow,
Scott Cole does take it up.
That turned into a horse race at the end.
It was very close.
quicker
Rahi
than
was
I
at
thought.
90% or thereabouts. So they were pretty close to that buy. I think that was closer than it needed to be. I think Scott Cole probably could have played that end game a little bit better and protected those off-worlds, and like he put the goon on the wrong off-world and then
Yes.
didn't mutiny the off-world back as soon as it was mutinied from him. I don't know what he may not have done that because he was worried about the mutiny goon play from Rahi. And if so, I can kind of respect that, because that would have been a potential game changer if Rahi had got that off-world for that amount of time and also had gotten another mutiny for free out of it. That would potentially have swung the game away from Scott Cole completely. But I think, yeah, I think he misplayed the end game, but he had enough of a lead that it didn't make that much of a difference.
Yes. So looking at, I wanted to take a look and see if anybody did any optimizing, and Rahi did a whole bunch of optimizing, 17 optimizations. That's advanced.
Yeah, I think he actually overdid the optimizations.
Oh, you think so?
And I only say that because looking at what on-world prices were at the end of the game, I think like
Well,
he
they
had
just
he
crashed,
had
but yeah.
two. Yeah, I mean he had two running for most of the game. And okay, chems were reasonably cheap, but that's two claims as a robotic player. I mean, claims are on the market, but I don't know how many claims he bought. It doesn't leave you a whole lot of claims. He actually bought 3, so fair enough. But it doesn't leave you a whole lot of claims to do other stuff. And having those 2 running the whole time, I think I would have preferred to have seen the 1, and maybe just maybe a couple less optimizations. Maybe not the 3 in silicon, or maybe not the 3 in food, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always difficult for something like if you're optimizing carbon or silicon. If you're not, say like if you're not a scavenger and you're optimizing carbon, or if you're optimizing silicon, those base prices typically will end up crashing. And so I don't know that I personally really like going to, say, the advanced level for silicon, because ultimately it's not going to be able to be sustained. If you're going to go advanced for something, you want to do something like a food